Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Susan Hudson from Texas Fertility Center with another episode of Fertility Docs Uncensored. I am here with my amazing, talented, I can't even think of how many amazing words to describe you guys, but Dr. Carrie Bedient from Fertility Center of Las Vegas.
Hi.
And Dr. Abby Eblen from Nashville Fertility Center.
Hi, everybody.
And we are joined today with Caroline Harries, who is founder and president of Moms in the Making. How are you doing, Caroline?
Hello, everyone. Wonderful. So honored to be among you three today. Very grateful to be here. Thank you.
I am so excited for you to come and kind of talk to us about, communities and fertility and things like that. But when we were starting off kind of getting to know each other, you mentioned that you are a first generation American.
I am. Yes.
Where's your family from?
So my mom was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and then my dad was born in Venezuela. And therefore, parents were all born in different countries: Poland, Indonesia, Grenada, and Netherlands.
Wow.
And then I was born in Oklahoma, which is like a womp womp. I'm like,
Middle America.
Yes, y'all could have definitely moved somewhere fun to have me, and they didn't, but that's okay. We'll forgive them. So yeah, so all of them have accents, and I don't.
So have you ever done like ancestry.com? Because I'm betting your genes are like all over the place.
They're probably crazy. You know what? I actually haven't. And
okay.
I should know more about my family history than I do. But yeah, because of that, we traveled all the time growing up. Most of my family is in Europe now, mainly in the Netherlands. And so if you know Europeans, they in general travel a lot. So I always just say it's in my blood. So my husband and I love to travel now, just all over the world. So
do you have dual citizenship or anything like that?
No, nothing fun. Nope. Straight up American, but love going.
I just got my dual citizenship with Lithuania about 6 months ago. I'm actually in about a month going to go to Chicago to get our passports. So we'll definitely be excited to have our blue and our red passports.
That's amazing.
Oh, cool.
When I was younger, I remember helping my mom study for her American citizenship test. So yeah.
So I want to know what family potlucks look like in your house, because like our house, it's generally pretty homogeneous. You kind of know what you're going to get, but what do you do when your parents and your grandparents are from all these different places? Like, are there food wars about, what we're
going to serve at Christmas?
Yeah, that is so funny. It's such an interesting dynamic, being that we grew up in the States. I didn't grow up knowing, like, having cousins around or aunts or uncles, we would have to go overseas to meet them. So one of the things that I grew up eating, it's in Dutch, which is my dad's first language. It's called hagelslag, which I'm totally butchering that.
Oh my.
It's basically code for chocolate sprinkles on bread and butter. And that's what you eat for breakfast in the Netherlands.
I was born into the wrong culture.
I know. Too. Yeah. So it's basically dessert for breakfast. And then Dutch cheese, of course, they're known for their cheese. So I love cheese. But then also my mom would make a lot of like kind of more Indonesian foods. So,
what would Indonesian food be?
It's honestly more like stir fry with the different sauces and stuff. So
spicy
spicy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. With different vegetables and meat. So I don't know, probably nothing too exciting. I think they've lived in the States long enough where it's also like, chicken and potato or something kind of boring. But we hold on to those chocolate sprinkles because
that definitely should be a part of everybody's repertoire.
Yeah. Probably not the greatest suggestion for people who are trying to grow their family and eat healthy, but it's definitely a fun treat.
Chocolate sprinkles on a layer of fat and carbs. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I see no problem with this.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for us for today, Susan?
I do. Okay. Our question today is there realistic hope? My husband and I were in the beginning stage of booking consults to pursue IVF since he has had a vasectomy, and I am 36 years old with a history of PCOS and endometriosis. I ran a few basic labs just to have ready for consults, taken 5 days post-period. My results were an FSH of 18.3, LH of 8.5, prolactin 9.1, and AMH of 0.03. Yes, all those zeros in the AMH are correct. I was quite shocked with my AMH levels and feel absolutely crushed. I'm a bit reluctant to have consults now and possibly be led false hope if it really isn't realistic to think I can have biological children. I would love to hear your individual client experiences. Your podcast has been a blessing while we have been researching and learning more about IVF. Thank you.
Can you tell us her age again, please?
36.
36.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to predict. We always say we don't have a crystal ball. And I always say, I always tell patients, there's no AMH at which I can tell you you absolutely cannot get pregnant. There's no AMH at which I tell you absolutely can get pregnant. But when you're talking about, less than 0.5, I do honestly worry. And, it's kind of one of those things. Some patients, feel like, well, I want to at least give it a chance and see. And some people do think about doing IVF. And of course, your husband would have to have, did he have vasectomy reversal, did you say, or?
He's had a vasectomy, so it sounds like they're going to do aspiration.
Yeah. So his sperm would have to be aspirated, which is a big expense as well. But it's kind of one of those things you don't know until you try. Certainly I think the majority of people that have an AMH in that range don't do so well. Some of them are not able to get to the end of the IVF cycle where they even stimulate many eggs. But every now and then, if you ask any of us, we all have that one or two patients that for all the world you thought they weren't going to do well. They did great. They got pregnant and had a live-born baby. So we just don't know. I mean, nobody really knows for sure unless you try.
What do you think, Carrie?
I mean, when you're looking at numbers like this with premature ovarian insufficiency, it's usually a 5% lifetime chance of getting pregnant. Obviously, that's a lot harder with a vasectomy. But this is one of those things where if you're going to try it, it's with the expectation of, I will probably only get one egg. I might get an embryo and I might get pregnant. And so setting expectations in your mind appropriately is very important because if you go in with those numbers, every doc I think is going to offer you, so let me tell you about donor egg.
Mhm.
And there are many of us who will try a cycle just to say, all right, let's try a low responder protocol. We don't use a whole lot in terms of meds to help make it cheaper and go through it. But a lot of it is setting the expectation to say, I fully understand that my chance of getting pregnant with this is less than 5%. And knowing that and having considered that, I'm willing to go through this. And I understand that this is a lot of money and you're not going to guarantee me anything, because any good doc is going to be super, super clear about that, probably multiple times. Because that's how we sleep at night. I mean, that's how I sleep at night when I've got someone who's in this position, is that we have these conversations over multiple visits so that we can kind of gauge like, okay, does this person really have a realistic idea of what I can offer and what I can? Because the last thing that I want to do is for someone to pay all the money for IVF, not get pregnant, and to be crushed because they thought, oh, this is a sure thing. And it doesn't sound like you are in that boat, but no, if you're trying it, it's oftentimes because, okay, I need to know that I tried at least once before moving on to donor. And there is real value in that. And there's some people who are like, screw it, I just want to have a baby and let's move to donor because that's what will get us there faster. And there are others who will think, I need to know that I tried with my own eggs at least once. And if it doesn't work, I can go about my life, however that is, donor, adoption, no kids, whatever, and move on from there.
So a couple of things I would like to say is that, there was a study a few years ago that essentially said, and I mean, we're all ovarian reserve testing believers. However, this is one of those times when I think we have to take our ovarian reserve testing with a grain of salt, is that I believe the study essentially said, if you hadn't tried getting pregnant, ovarian reserve testing was not exceptionally predictive on the likelihood of you conceiving. So, I mean, you haven't had sperm around, so that kind of puts you into that. Now, your AMH level is low, and it does make us concerned. I mean, I've had more than a handful of people who get spontaneously pregnant, not with the same sperm situation you're in, but people have gotten spontaneously pregnant with undetectable AMHs. So I always take AMH with a grain of salt. Your FSH was on day 5, which is a little bit late foreign FSH levels, so that it may not be quite as high in reality as day 3 labs, because your FSH is supposed to rise. That's the way it works as you're going further into the cycle. That's why ideally we want to do FSH and estradiol on day 1 to 4 of your menstrual cycle. So if it was day 5, it was outside of that window. It may be splitting hairs, but again, it may not quite be as bad as it seems at this point. But I do agree, like, you are going to have lower chances. You have less eggs. We definitely know that. But if in your heart you feel like you need to give it a try, then I would say go for it. And if in your heart you're like, I know the odds are not necessarily in our favor and it's going to take, a lot, and I'd rather go to something like donor egg or donor embryo or adoption or something else, then that's okay too. I think you're seeking out information, which is the first hardest thing to do. And I applaud you for asking the question. So,
And I think she should visit her doctor. She sort of said, I don't even know if I want to go see the doctor. I would definitely go and talk to your, reproductive endocrinologist, because, with knowledge, there's power, and he may, or she may give you information that maybe we didn't give you, or you may have time to, think a lot more about it by the time you get there. But I definitely would at least go for one visit for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, good stuff. So let's turn to Caroline. And today we're going to talk about, going through your fertility journey and reaching out to the communities that are available. And Caroline, kind of give us a little bit about maybe your story and how you ended up starting Moms in the Making, and why is community so important?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for asking. So my husband and I got married in 2011, and very soon into our marriage, we were like, we're ready for kids. We didn't get married late, but later than probably most of our friends and community. And so anyway, my husband had testicular cancer previously. And so we decided to get checked out right away, and they were not able to find any sperm. And so that really began right away, essentially, this kind of journey of being a part of this infertility community. So shortly after that, I really had a desire to have women over to my living room who were also going through infertility, whether they were struggling to get pregnant, struggling to stay pregnant. I remember some of those women had a child, but were struggling to have their second. They were going through secondary infertility, which we know is pretty common. And so I had 5 or 6 women over, people that friends of friends. I think there was a few people from a church that I was a part of. And we came together, and it was just such a sweet time, because these women are going through infertility. And at that point, they were really all alone. They didn't have anyone else to connect with, to seek out questions, to seek out support and counsel and prayer and wisdom. And so that began what we now call Moms in the Making. So that was in June of 2013.
So how did you find these women? Because most people don't go around advertising, hey, I need to go through fertility treatment, or hey, my husband and I are having unprotected sex, and guess what? It's not working.
And
yeah.
Come over to our house.
Yes, I know.
Let's have drinks.
How do you functionally find these people?
And how did they trust that I was not a murderer when they came
Yeah,
to my house,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you're pretty cute. You don't look like a murderer.
So that's a great question. Part of my story is about a week after we were diagnosed with infertility, I decided to start a blog, which is kind of funny because my background is finance. I love numbers. I love Excel. I was working at that time as a financial analyst, and I did not write. I probably barely passed English in college. So, anyways, it was on my heart. So I started a blog, and that blog honestly started to get traction. And so it was being read, across the United States, but as far as I remember, really worldwide too. And so I really think that that's how people were finding out about Moms in the Making, more so later on. I guess specifically, Carrie, to answer your question, for those people who were coming over to my living room, I think one of them was someone I already knew in person. One of them was a friend of a friend. I think I had posted like on a flyer and someone else found out about it. So it really was the power of word of mouth. And since then, Moms in the Making has really grown through the power of the internet. As you all know, it's probably how people find out about this podcast is social media and Googling and websites and like I said, word of mouth too.
Interesting. Clearly you have those skills to connect people together. So that's pretty amazing.
Yes.
So,
I love people, and I just love creating a safe place for people to come and receive encouragement.
so what kind of words of encouragement did you talk to like during that first meeting, or you were going through it as well? So really, I guess it was just sort of group hug for everybody to kind of support each other. So what are some of the things that you talked about during those early times?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely love to give each woman a time to just kind of update what's going on, where they're at, if they have any upcoming appointments, a time to ask any questions. It is a faith-based group, so there is an underlying foundation of, we dive into scripture together and discuss that. And so, Abby, I wish I could go back and like remember all those conversations. And I don't, but I just know that people left feeling like, oh my gosh, I can finally relate. I actually remember one time a woman came, she sat on the couch, and we probably would meet around an hour and a half to 2 hours. And at the end, the meeting ends and she's just like, her face is almost stone cold. And so I'm like, oh geez, this girl is never coming back. And sure enough, at the end, I was like, are you okay? Like, how are you? She's like, I am just in such shock because for all of these years, I've been suffering silently. And to hear someone talk about, wow, they're struggling with whatever, communicating with their husband because of this, or they're struggling with intimacy with their husband, or they haven't had a period in years and I haven't had either, whatever it was. I don't remember all the details and ins and outs. She's like, I just can't believe that I'm in someone's home with other women who get it. And I think that's so much what has brought just so much hope and encouragement and life to people is because they finally have a safe place where they're not going to be judged. They're not going to be misunderstood. No one's going to ask them, well, why don't you have kids yet? Because it's all people who are in that same phase of life.
So when somebody is in their fertility journey and they're thinking about like, hey, maybe I should talk to somebody other than my bestie or my husband or my sister or my mom, and you're looking for a group, what would be a few things you would encourage people to look for when they're looking for a group?
Yeah, I think one would definitely be that it's a safe place. We very much communicate to our leaders, like what set-in group needs to be honored and respected. And these women coming in, they're bearing burdens and they're going through hard things, and IVF and fertility treatments or adoption or surrogacy or whatever it is very personal, and complications in your marriage are very personal, and intimacy and things like that are very personal. And so I think it being a safe place is important. I think it's important to value and honor and respect every single woman who is in attendance. And so that's definitely something that we communicate to our leaders, or these are real people with emotions and this hard season that they're in. And so just honoring them, valuing them, respecting them. So I think safe place, but I also think that, what I've heard that people have come to Moms in the Making is they were like, I tried another group and I left feeling so much worse. And I just left feeling drained and exhausted. And I felt so much worse. And my husband would be like, why are you going to this? And so, while Moms in the Making is one avenue, I know there's many other avenues. And so I would just encourage whoever is listening, is it a safe place where you know that you can share and that they are going to listen and hear you out and then honor and not go, talk about your story to other people, but also, are you leaving encouraged? Are you leaving like, oh my gosh, these are my people. This is my community. And not that every single person is going to like hit it off and be best friends, but still we've actually found that I think the reason so many people love Moms in the Making is because of the community. We have people who have met who are lifelong best friends. They fly across the country to see each other now because they've met at the conference. Their husbands, we actually have a couple in Michigan and Ohio that when the women come to conference, the husbands get together and they have their little kind of weekend hangout. And so, you know, I think
in the
those would
making.
be,
Dad's in the making. That should
my
be your
husband
next.
started it. Yes.
Did
No,
he?
that's,
Oh, there
yes.
you go.
Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
husbands need support too. They're going through it. And, you know, it looks different. They're not sitting around like talking about their wives' periods and cycles but they need a place. They need a place to talk. And yes, it looks different, but yep, Dad's in the Making has launched. So any husbands out there who are looking for support and looking to connect, go ahead, Abby.
So Caroline, what do you think you guys do differently? Because you're exactly what you said is what I've heard from some other people that have been in other support groups. They say, well, it's just, I feel like it's just people are venting and it's very negative and I just feel so depressed when I leave. What's different about Moms in the Making, you think, that make people feel encouraged when they leave? Because we all want to give them some of that.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, ours is faith-based. So it is based on biblical encouragement, which look, I'm not trying to shove that down, you know, anyone's throat. So it would be something that a woman who is a Christian would want to join. Now, we welcome any kind of religion, any kind of background, but I think it's really the hope that we find in Christ that women catch on to, and they receive it and they're like, I was missing this. You know, we have had women come in who maybe weren't a Christian and then they realized, oh my gosh, this is actually the hope that I was looking for. And so, you know, we realized we're not for everyone, and that's okay, right? Just like the church down the street might not be for everyone, or the restaurant down the street might not be for everyone, but we do want to say we are a safe place. We do believe you'll find encouragement if you join, and we are just it feels like a family. I think all the leaders would tell you that it feels like a family where it's like, I've met my people. I mean, we have women from Europe fly over and they're like, y'all are my people. And so it's just a sweet community. Yeah, it really, and we've seen, I have to share this. We have had, I wish I could quantify exactly. And so I'm going to go on the lower end, but we've had over 500 babies born from women who are part of the group. So members who are struggling to conceive, secondary infertility, you know, that does include those who adopted. And so there's just so many amazing stories that have come out of it, the friendships, the community, the babies, and then just people who are bitter or who were jealous, and we're able to give them tools and resources on how to deal with anxiety, how to overcome fear, how to address their bitterness and jealousy and more.
Yeah.
How did the online groups function? Because it's always a lot easier if you're sitting in a room having, you know, a bunch of cookies, chips, whatever sweet or salty snack gets you through the day or through a tough session like that. But how do the online groups work, and how do those interactions work? Because a lot of people, like I have a lot of patients who are coming from middle of nowhere, you know, Nevada, Utah, Northern Arizona, Eastern California, and they don't have people nearby. There is no group because they don't exist. So what's the dynamic on online groups?
Yeah, I love that question, Carrie. You know, our heart really is to have a group in every city, which I know is like a long-term vision, but until we get there, we've really communicated to people who want to be a part. Look, until we have a group in every city, we in the interim have virtual groups. So right now we have around 20 virtual groups. And so we have one meeting every night of the week, pretty much. Some nights actually we have 2 or maybe even 3 meeting. And so it's actually a lot like this. It's a Zoom call where we have a leader who facilitates discussion. Each person has their time to share. Again, ask for prayer or share, you know, I have an appointment on Monday. They can ask questions. They dive into kind of the curriculum that's handed to them. And so it looks different than in person. I don't think we can ever replace in-person connection. Right. And I mean, we saw that during COVID, you know, it's like, man, we were meant to like be with people.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So I'm sure even y'all can say, if you do Zoom calls with your patients, there's nothing that replicates.
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. but it's one avenue. And so while it's not our favorite way, we are saying, look, if you live in the middle of North Dakota, we have a group for you, and you have all these different nights to choose from, and they can get plugged in. And I mean, our virtual groups, these women, I'm telling you, they love each other. One of them just messaged me the other day. All of her virtual group is coming to our conference. And she's like, can we make shirts? We're all making shirts. We can't wait. We're sharing hotel rooms. They're coordinating rides. And so it really becomes such a sweet community. And then what's also great is we have what's now called Moms Made. So you go through Moms in the Making, you go through infertility, you have a baby. Well, we still want a safe place for you to be able to just talk about motherhood and, I don't know, diapers and all the things of potty training and all that comes with motherhood.
It doesn't necessarily get easier. It just gets
different.
It doesn't. And that's what I try to communicate to people going through infertility. Like, the baby is not going to solve all the problems. It's actually probably just going to create a few more new ones, right? It's just a different season, and there's, hardship and beautiful moments in both. But anyways, so we have the Moms Made group. So we have in-person ones, but we also have virtual groups. And then, like I said, we have the Dads in the Making. And that's right now is just running virtually.
So tell us again, you told us this before, but how many groups do you have in this country, and how many international groups do you have?
Yeah. So total, we have 82 groups. So an area where I'm from, like Dallas, Texas, we have like 6 or 7 in the DFW area, but we have groups spanning about 30 something states. We have groups in Canada and in person in Mexico. We also have virtual groups in Spanish. And then we have groups over in Europe as well. We have about 4 over there. And then we have some of our virtual groups meeting in European time zones. That way it just kind of works for anyone in, those are meeting in English, but it would kind of cater to anyone who lives over in that area. So yeah, we've grown quickly, and it's been great and amazing. So, and it's just the power of getting the word out through Google and social media and website, and then just, I don't know, people just find out about it. We'll have someone register for a group, and it'll say, how did you find out? They're like, my therapist, my counselor, my fertility doctor. And so word kind of just gets out.
That's neat. That's neat. So one thing I want our listeners to know is when you're sitting here listening to this podcast, that it is very, very normal to feel sad, to feel isolated, to feel frustrated, to be angry, to go through all of those different emotions, and that you don't have to do this alone. There are other people out there. 1 in 7 couples has trouble conceiving. That's a lot of people. And though you may not know somebody personally, probably through your journey, you're going to figure out some people you do know personally.
It's amazing. There's a lot of people that you wouldn't realize probably that are having fertility problems, and you just don't know it. So it's great that your group exists so people can find their group.
And I love that, because we talk about that. Like, Susan, what you're saying, we talk about, what do you do when you're angry? What do you do when you're disappointed? And all of those emotions, and how do we process them? Is it going to a counselor? Is it writing in a journal? Is it coming up with a gratitude jar? Are you struggling in your marriage? Is it making time to go on a date night? So just practically, we try to get as practical as possible. What are things? What's a hobby you can take up? What's a fun trip you can go on with your girlfriends? And just how to process all the emotions, because my goodness, the anger, the grief, the jealousy, the bitterness, it's all going to ebb and flow during that journey. And I just think it's important that we don't stuff it, and that we don't go through it alone, but that we talk about it and kind of come up with practical steps on how to move forward.
And I think the mind is a very, very strong factor in our success in what we do. I mean, I told somebody just a couple of days ago that I was like, I need you to be in the right headspace, because it's a whole lot easier for me to get somebody pregnant who believes it can happen. Yeah. And because if you go into your IUI or your embryo transfer and you're like, this isn't going to work, you know what? There's a good chance that that's what's going to happen. It's one of those intangibles that we really can't measure. But if I have somebody who has a very positive outlook on it, it definitely it bumps up those success points. It definitely does. And I don't think it's just perspective.
So good.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been so nice to get to know you and kind of share information on why, support groups are important and a little bit about Moms in the Making. And to our audience, thank you so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for more. Also, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Would love to hear you. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So subscribe and stay updated on all things fertility. Also, don't forget about our upcoming conference. It will be in New Braunfels, Texas. So just right in between San Antonio and Austin on October 28th, 2023. We're going to talk about everything fertility. We really want to see you in person. Again, like we mentioned, there's some things that you can get over the internet that are great, but having that in-person connection is very, very important. So we can't wait to see you.
You can also visit fertilitydocsuncensored.com to submit specific questions you have, also to get conference information. Any questions you ask will be answered anonymously on our Ask the Doc segment, so don't hold back. We love episode ideas as well, so let us know what you're thinking and want to hear. You can also send that information via Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And as always, this podcast is intended for entertainment. It's not a substitute for medical advice from your own physician. All right, we'll talk with you soon. Bye.
Bye.